Wishing to address the board on items on tonight's agenda may do so at this time. Comments should be restricted to 3 minutes, not including board questions and comments and responses by the speaker. In accordance with the open meeting law, comments and questions may deal only with topics on the agenda of the meeting. And I have Geraldine that would like to speak on old business district goals.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on something on the agenda, district goals draft. Beyond Textbooks is a wonderful program that benefits the district and our teachers alike. The district goal draft states that 90% of the teachers must assist with Beyond Textbooks. I believe that there's a financial benefit if they do. Am I correct to say that? But it has to be 90% compliance per site for them to be benefited. What happens if only 75% complied and added plans, videos, resources to Beyond Textbooks? Will those teachers receive financial benefit, or will they be penalized because some teachers did not contribute to Beyond Textbooks? I just feel that since our district program, Beyond Textbooks, will still benefit from anything our teachers add, I believe that any teacher that did one of the drafted points should receive a financial benefit and not be penalized for others not complying. Please take into consideration that many teachers do take many hours creating their lesson plans, as many do not have textbooks to pull their plans from. Anyone that adds towards their goal should receive a benefit from it. Sorry, I can't talk today. Also, will 100% of the teachers benefit if they have not complied? It seems that some will benefit even if they do nothing to help. I just think a more fair distribution will be one that only the ones complying to the draft should benefit. And if the site does comply by 90% or more, maybe the site can get a bonus. Our teachers are what keeps our schools going, and I believe retention will be better if they're recognized for their hard work. Thank you again for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you, Geraldine.
We're going to address those when the item comes up.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is Superintendent's Report. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. I do have several items I just want to call attention to under Superintendent's Report. One is that our normal second Tuesday, fourth Tuesday board meeting schedule is going cattywampus between now and the end of the school year because of fall break, Thanksgiving holiday, November election night, and the ASBA conference, annual conference in December. So we've had to adjust those meetings. I know we've had that conversation with the board, but I just want to be transparent with what those are and why. And make note that we will have one meeting in October. That'll be Tuesday, October 18th. We will have two meetings in November 1st and November 15th. And then one meeting in December, which will be December 6th, and the last meeting, that will be the last meeting of the calendar year. So just wanted to call attention to that. Also want to call attention to this tomorrow. I sent this out as just a information to the board, but it's been a good but busy week. I've been asked to participate as the lone representative for district schools on a panel speaking to tomorrow morning at the Arizona Chamber of Commerce on statewide education issues. It'll be me, Kevin McCarthy from ATRA, Jake Logan, who's the head of the Charter Association, and Jenny Clark, who represents a parent organization. It's moderated by Becky Hill, formerly of A for Arizona, Goldwater Institute, and others. So it should be an interesting opportunity and exchange. Feel honored to be able to have been asked to do that. And then later that evening, is I sent out notes and follow up to our joint site council meeting last week, a week ago today. We spoke about the aggregate expenditure limit and the potential impact that has if that is not addressed by the legislature. Our lobbying group, Arizona Education Finance Reform Group, along with several others, including Arizona School Administrators, are putting on a virtual town hall tomorrow evening for parents that will talk about that issue. It'll also feature Senators Sam Bowie and Paul Boyer, both Republicans who voted for the budget and are in support of addressing the aggregate expenditure limit. I've been asked also to be a panelist on that. I'll be one of 2 superintendents on that as a panelist. Right now there are about 350 people statewide who've signed in for that, so it's a critical issue. So just want to call attention to that. And then this Friday is our Beyond Textbook Super Conference. The first time we'll have been able to hold that in person, and this will be in 3 years. And we have 600 people who have signed up for that. And it is the antidote to anybody who is skeptical about the collaborative power of public education and public educators. We'll be running that. There's a number of sessions that'll be happening, held by our staff as well as staff from our partner districts. And in attendance will include not only people from our state, people from out of state, people representing traditional public schools, charter schools, and private schools. So it is our collective work of getting along for the purpose of improving education and educational outcomes for children and families. I used to say in Arizona, but now across Arizona and multiple states. So it's really good stuff. So that's my report.
Thank you. And thank you for serving not only us, but the state on those committees and panels. Next item on the agenda is board reports. Governing board members may present reports at this time. Do any board members wish to make a report? Yes, Ms. Tippett.
We're in our first week of fall break for a lot of us, and there's a lot of us who, a lot of our folks who are hard at work at our schools on intercession work with our kiddos, and I'm grateful for the staff who takes their break to work with our kiddos who are in need. So grateful for them, grateful for the families making that happen, and for the outcomes that happen for our kiddos. So that's it.
Mr. King?
Yes. So this past week, as Superintendent Carutha talked about, we last Tuesday we had our joint site council meeting. It was amazing to see everybody there, but also to see kind of what the site councils and everybody from the district kind of wanted to see the direction where they wanted us to head as well. So that was actually something kind of interesting to see. Filling out the cafeteria there at Cienega was actually kind of neat. So on top of that, it was actually just good to see people from everywhere around too.
Mm-hmm.
So additionally, last Thursday we had the ASBA county meeting as well. So everybody was, I think almost everybody was there. We had almost everybody there. And I don't know if everybody heard, but Claudia got the turquoise award for boardsmanship. So
Thank you.
that was actually one of the things that was mentioned there. So Claudia got recognized. John, I think everybody there got recognized in some form or fashion from this board. So it was actually kind of good to see. So
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes,
if I may,
certainly.
I left something
Sure.
really important off. Last Wednesday night, Amanda Cook, who is our district-wide counselor, led a district-wide online suicide prevention training, question persuade for QPR. And we had quite a few parents who joined us for that and stayed all the way through the end. It ended up going 2 hours between questions and really good, important material. And grateful for Amanda's efforts in getting that out to our parents, so parents feel like they can be equipped in having conversations, not only with their children, but with friends, coworkers, family members, because it applies across the board. So thank you to Amanda Cook.
Mhm.
Or did you
I was
wanna-
gonna say, and I believe Amanda is gonna be doing a second round of that.
I
So-
think this is gonna be,
Continuous?
That's great. Did you have anything further?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, I was on vacation Thursday up in Denver to see our daughter. We went up there, so I was not able to attend the county, but I appreciate the award. And, the site council meeting was I thought it was just so excellently done. I thought, Mr. Cruz did a great job, sharing where we've been and where we hope to go, and then getting all the input from various individuals. And I thought it was just a very positive, uplifting experience, and it made me feel like we are all going in the right direction. So I was very happy with that. And I'm wondering if Miss Pratt has anything.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I do have a quick board report. Nothing that has not already been mentioned, but I did want to thank our site council members at each of our sites. I attended the joint site council meeting last week, like the rest of you, and it really is just such a wonderful testament of the work that's happening at each of our sites. We had great conversation at my table, people that were engaged, caring about the kids at their school, well, all kids really, but advocating for the kids at their schools. And it just was just a really great experience. So I just want to thank each of the site council members. I attended the suicide prevention training with Miss Cook. She did an amazing job presenting. I did have to get off a little bit early. I had another meeting to go to. She did a great job acknowledging the hard and heavy topic and treating it with sensitivity. She just did a really wonderful job. So I want to commend her and thank her for her work. And then I attended part of the Pima County Collaborative last week. I had to leave for another meeting again. But I just loved being able to go there with my fellow board members as they are receiving awards for their training. And so I just want to thank each of you that you each are board members that care about our community and care about being trained and bettering yourself as well. So I'm grateful to work to volunteer alongside of you. So congratulations to each of you.
Thank you. And we're all very honored to be serving with you as well, Ms. Pratt. You're a great addition. We'll go on to the consent agenda. All items listed below are consent matters and will be considered by one motion at this time. There will be no discussion of consent items. Any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda by request. All items not accepted and approved as part of the consent agenda will be considered individually. Do any board members wish to pull an item? Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. It's recommended that the Vail School District Governing Board approve all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, I'll accept a motion in a second.
I'll move.
Ms. Tippett moves.
Second?
Mr. King seconds. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. The next section of the agenda is old business, and the first item is ASBA policy advisories. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. We studied this, I'll say, raft of new policies last board meeting, both in a study session and during regular session. They are policies that are being adjusted as a result of legislative changes that occurred last legislative session. So happy to go over any of them that are associated here in specifics. With that, I'll just go ahead and make the recommendation. The Vail School District Governing Board approve ASBA policy advisories as presented.
Okay. I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Mr. King moves.
I'll second.
Ms. Tippett seconds. I'll call for the vote. I mean, are there any questions or comments? Oh, yes, Ms. Tippett.
I just appreciate the opportunity to study and then have some time to consider it further and for you to bring it back for actual approval. It's really a helpful process, and this is quite the packet of updates. Our legislature has been very busy. And I know it takes a lot for our staff to also implement these things. So grateful for them.
Thank you.
I don't know if we should, since I don't know if the public can see the policy advisory aspect on it, some of the key takeaways or highlights in there that might be relieving to some of the community members or whatnot.
Do you want to share
Sure, I can do that. So one, I mean, I'll just run through them if you want me to do that. Policy JLCB, immunization of students. Something that we are, puts in policy a practice that we've already had in place, which is we don't require and now can't require COVID vaccination for students.
but the remainder of the vaccinations?
The remainder of the vaccinations are unchanged.
Right.
The, yep. Scrolling, because there's lots of scrolling to do. Yeah, still scrolling. People are wondering. Same with communicable and infectious diseases. Strikes the ability to wear masks for COVID. Again, something we haven't had in place for well over a year. Policy GBGCB, same. So the reason that they're in different places has to do with staff and students, and then immunizations. So same law, different places in policy. The DIA is an accounting clarification. We're putting this into policy, but it doesn't affect us. Allows requires the counties, allows the ability for districts to develop and share a file with the State Board of Ed, the county superintendent of the county in which the school is located, and implement prior to the January 1 of the preceding fiscal year of implementation before applying to assume accounting responsibility. The district must apply for evaluation. We do our own accounting responsibility and just work with accounting. So it really applies to smaller school districts. IAH is basic instructional programs. This one puts into place observance of September 11th each year. And on September 11th, public schools shall dedicate a portion of school day to age-appropriate education regarding the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001. It also clarifies that if already in place, the Sandra Day O'Connor Civic Celebration Day or 9/11 Day falls on a Saturday or Sunday, we'll do that on the preceding school day. Scrolling. JLDA, school counselors and psychologists, allows for a broader certification ability for those that hold licensure as a licensed psychologist through the Department of Ed. Again, it's something that we've been doing in practice for a number of years. It's just codified now in law. So There's some adjustments to the JICFA hazing. Clarifies the definition of what hazing is. Kind of very minor and as far as what it is and implications for us. So just a minor adjustment to the definition of hazing. Go through that. That's been on our books for a while. Just further clarifies that. There's a change to graduation requirements regarding the competencies of civics. That beginning with the graduating class of 2026, competency requires for social studies shall include the requirement of passing the civics test with at least a 70 and also 70%, and also allows that to be done in 7th or 8th grade and count towards that high school graduation requirement. Intramural sports falls in line with the law, clarifying what male sports and female sports and co-ed sports mean, and designating that biological males can participate in male sports or co-ed sports, but cannot participate on female women's or girls sports, and further clarifies that females can participate as they have been able to on any of those. There's further just operationally clarification around especially sports at AIA level, so we also follow those guidelines. Scrolling, still scrolling. Transportation services, EE, allows us to use a different kind of what we call a white fleet to transport students. Fundamentally lowers the safety rating for vans. We're putting this policy in, but we're going to be really thoughtful on if we do that and what kind of vehicles we use. There's some conversation with Arizona Department of Transportation on what that actually looks like, but just broadens the ability to do that. We currently use a school rated white fleet that meets a higher safety rating that doesn't need a CDL to use. We may expand the use of that, but at this point we don't have any plans to use like what you would think of as a traditional van. Some changes to the clarifications on the CDL and what transportation, what a driver needs by the Department of Public Safety. JF is student admissions, certificate of educational convenience, which to me is the bodily equivalent to an appendix. It's rarely used and is antiquated in form, but is clarified in language that allows a student residing in a neighboring district to attend the neighboring district if there is an educational convenience for them to do so, usually because of distance or obstacles. So I'm sure that had some rural connotation that caused that change. School ceremonies and observances. This one we'll see the change when we return. Requires at least 1 minute, but not to exceed 2 minutes of a moment of silence in the beginning of every class period. Every school day, not class period. Thank you for saying that. That's what happens when I'm on page 99 of the policy. Some minor tweaks to teaching about controversial and sensitive issues. Substantive, I mean, it's language changes like influence is exchanged for responsibility and values is exchanged for education. So not significant. So those are the breeze through of the changes. So I think I made the recommendation on it. That was a while ago.
Yes.
Thanks.
And that was the discussion. So any other discussion or comments? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 2022-2023 district goals. Mr. Kruth.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. This is another item that was studied at our last meeting. Specifically, the district goals are just that. They're district-wide, intent to help provide a guide for where we want to move as a school district. The two goals that we're bringing forward are goals that we've had previously. We want, and that is by intention, is where are we moving and why are we moving there? But all schools in the Vail School District receive an A or B rating based on assessments given during the spring of 2023. And 90%, and there's a variety of ways to do this, 90% of Vail teachers will contribute to Beyond Textbooks and website and or assist APT textbook partner organization. So just engaging in that process. And I want to address the comments that were made in regard to this item and called on items that are on the agenda tonight. So if I get them correct, a couple of things. One, district goals, there's no compensation tied to district goals, but what district's goals do is help us refine site-based goals. In this case, what sites will now do is go and create their site-based goals, and there is compensation tied to those site-based goals if those are achieved. And we develop these goals in collaboration with our staff and sites. And actually the BT goal was expanded, so it would be more encompassing to allow people to participate and create the effect of this. And I guess what I want to say in regard to a BT goal is the purpose of BT for us, a side benefit for us, is that we then share those resources out with a whole lot of partners. But the primary benefit of Beyond Textbooks is our own staff. And the purpose and the reason that we developed Beyond Textbooks was so that we could be shared collaboratively across our school district. And that, when we began doing that, we saw an incredible accelerative effect on the quality of instruction that was happening in our own classrooms. Because what happens in one third grade class is an amazing lesson is now shared across all third grade classrooms, and the ability to connect with things that used to reside in a master teacher's file drawer. And unless you had access to that teacher in that drawer, you didn't get a copy of. Now it's shared out broadly. And so there is a huge accelerant effect to our ability and recognition for our own staff and for our own students and the benefit of our students that we keep Beyond Textbooks fresh. And this is an issue that largely our staff are completely bought into because of that reason. And then the side benefit is that we also share those resources with partner districts to fulfill our mission of being a lighthouse district. So just wanted to clarify those comments. So to be specific, no financial incentives are tied to district goals, but they do drive site and leadership goals.
Okay,
I probably should make the recommendation. It's recommended that the Vail School District Governing Board adopt the district goals as presented.
Okay, I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Mr.
second.
King moves and Ms. Tippett seconds. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. King?
Yes, Superintendent Caruthi, last week during the Joint Site Council meeting, you were talking about the various states outside of Arizona that engaged BT within a 1 week period. And I can't remember the number of states, but is that something you could replay off?
Yeah, off the top of my head, not with pinpoint accuracy. But I was showing a graph. I believed I did that at my superintendent's update last time, just the number of states that were accessing materials. And it was a significant number, over half the states. We actually we have partners who participate in BT in 14 different states. But we can see where people draw down materials. There's probably a few clinger honors that do that from people who've left us that still have passwords and so on, that we're drawing those down in the states where we don't have official partners, because if I remember correctly, it was like a handful of states where that wasn't happening every day. Again, well, if we were a corporation or driven by profit, we would probably go after those things aggressively. We don't. That's not the intent. The intent is to move the needle on instruction and help people and partner with them. So we do, restrict passwords, but we don't have the manpower to do that, and that's really not our purpose, but a lot. But we partner with 14 education entities, I should say, in 14 states. Many of them are not traditional public school districts. Many of them are private schools or charter schools. And we do no statewide, we do no advertising for Beyond Textbooks. It's all word of mouth. I mean, it's all, in fact, BT was in Chicago last week, where a superintendent who started his career in Vail now is teaching just across the border in Indiana, and just brought BT to, I think this is his 3rd or 4th district, because he believes in the value of it, and turning around really low performing school districts. There's a lot of benefit to it for us in developing and keeping that humming.
Do you have any comments or questions? Nope. How many districts in Arizona, or how many schools in Arizona?
A lot. Well, we have over right around 120 total partners, and roughly 100 of them are in Arizona.
Yeah.
And you figure there's 240-ish school districts and 350-ish charter organizations. So we have, we serve as the largely professional development center for a large number of school districts when it comes to, in particular, academic and instructional strategies, with a very small staff.
That's great. Okay, so if there are no other comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is warehouse supervisor position job description reclassification. Mr. Kruth.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. This is another, the next several items are job description cleanups that we are doing as we are, we talked about when Mrs. Cervantes moved along, needing to step back and take some time to evaluate what are we doing with some of the other positions. Several of these positions are in those categories. So this is one of them, just drafting and clarifying what the warehouse supervisor position job description is, and updating that. Currently, that position is the revised position is filled by Gene Holmes. The intent is to continue to do that. The job description more aligns with his current duties now. Happy to answer more about that. Mrs. Quiros is here as well. Happy to do that as well, but I'll go ahead and make the recommendation. The Vail School District Governing Board approve the warehouse supervisor position job description reclassification as presented.
I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Mr. King moves. Second. Ms. Tippett seconds. Are there any questions or comments? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Next item on the agenda is accounts payable supervisor job description and position. Mr. Kruth.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. Same, just a different department under our business office. This is the accounts payable. As you heard Mrs. Cervantes note, as part of the study session, we processed somewhere in the neighborhood of $160 million last year. All of that has to be paid out. All of that goes out through accounts payable. That's a large volume of money, needs to be done incredibly well and accurate. there's a lot of tasks that are needed to accomplish that. That is simply creating a supervisory position for that as well. We reviewed this last meeting. I'll go ahead and make the recommendation that the Vail School District Governing Board approve the accounts payable supervisor job description position as presented.
I'll accept a motion. I move. Ms. Tippett moves.
Second,
Mr. King seconds. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. King?
just a real quick clarification. I think it was Ms. Kudos that said it during the study session, not Ms. Cervantes.
Did I say Mrs. Cervantes?
Yes.
Holy cow. Sorry, that's twice. Okay, thank you, Mr. King.
And then I just want to clarify that these items that we are reviewing and voting upon were discussed in the previous
Yep.
board meeting. So, any other comments or questions? I'll accept a motion.
Motion's already made.
Oh, and then I made a comment. So I know. Okay, we'll go call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the grants manager job description and position. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. Mrs. Kudos helped us redefine this position as based on her assessment of the needs of her department in regards to managing our grants. She also noted in the study session, we receive and process a large volume of grants. Every grant, I say, is like a marionette, comes with a number of strings attached, and we need to make sure that, and timelines that need to be nailed down in order to be compliant and for us to draw the money down. That has been run by an incredibly small grouping of staff over the years. In fact, Mrs. Cindy King, who was that department for a long time, has done a lot of that work just on her own. So this creates a grant manager position and also creates some sustainability in that area for us moving forward. So with that, I'll make the recommendation that the Vail School District Governing Board approve the grants manager job description and position as presented.
I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Mr. King moves.
I'll second.
Ms. Tippett seconds. Are there any questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is transportation monitor, special needs, job description and position. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. Again, another one that we studied at the last meeting. We've had a bus monitor job description on the books for a number of years. This specifically splits that out and recognizes transportation monitor special needs position, recognizing the unique needs of a bus monitor who helps on a special needs route, and also, frankly, makes a pay adjustment there because of specific training that is required for that. Often we are transporting medically fragile students with varying degrees of language and communication challenges and or behavioral needs. So this job description recognizes that and makes a slight pay adjustment to honor that. So with that, I'll make the recommendation the Vail School District Governing Board approve transportation monitor special needs job description and position as presented.
I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Mr. King moves.
I'll second.
Ms. Tippett seconds. Are there any questions or comments? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Next section of the agenda is new business, and the first item is dual enrollment and Vail Early College.
Yep.
Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. I'm going to have Mr. Ethan Hurley come up, and also in the audience to assist is Miss Rayleigh May, who I just also want to call attention to, who runs our Vail Early College program. This is an informed opportunity to talk about what we are doing with dual enrollment in the Vail Early College. Mr. Hurley.
Thank you, President Anderson, Mr. Kruth, members of the board. I just wanted to first, Ms. May is going to do the talking because she's got the inside insight, but I wanted to give a brief moment to step backwards and remind that about 6 years ago, we were at an intersection and we made a decision. And sometimes it's really powerful to look back and see where we were before we celebrate where we are. We found some really strong research that said that students who enrolled in dual enrollment classes, even if it's just one class, not only graduated college at a higher rate, but graduated earlier than their peers who didn't. And so we made a purposeful shift in lots of places to dual enrollment, where traditionally we had been in advanced placement, and still do that in some places. And now it's really a both and. We didn't know at the time how big of a shift that would be. We had to literally get a law changed, and then we've had to work really closely with Ms. Quiros to figure out our system is not made to buy 85 students college textbooks and then return them 6 months later for a discount, and then turn around 3 weeks later and buy more textbooks. And so we've had to be very creative on those things. And Mark and his team had to figure out, how do we get paid for kids that aren't going to our campus? And so lots of things happened, but then really one of the major things that happened was when we hired Miss May and put her in charge of really trying to be bilingual and figuring out what is it about the college and how do we get inside and how do we figure these things out. So tonight you're going to hear about the amazing things that she's gotten done, not just through the early college, but back at our local schools, at our high schools. 3 of our high schools offer lots and lots of dual enrollment. And it's a lot of it because of just her dogged determination. She's in a place 6 miles away from our nearest school. She doesn't have bells. She doesn't have buses. She doesn't have a lunchroom. She doesn't even work for them. She's got no power other than the power of persuasion. But if you know Rayleigh, she's got a pretty strong power of persuasion. And so she's made some great things happen. Mrs. Tippett acknowledged that there's great things happening during break. We chose tonight on purpose because Rayleigh's not on break. The early college kids are not on break. Today is just Tuesday for the early college. They run on the PIMA calendar. So it's a great night to have her come here and share some of the really great things she's made happen. So here's Miss Rayleigh May.
Okay. Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board, Superintendent Crew. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I will try to make this short, but I can't make any promises. Over the years, Vail students have had many avenues to work towards earning college credit prior to graduating from high school. From college credit through AP exams to partnership with GCU, Grand Canyon University, and the University of Arizona to provide dual enrollment on the high school campus, to even students self-enrolling in PIMA courses through concurrent enrollment. These were all great opportunities, but all had a cost to parents, which created a barrier for some in taking advantage of this opportunity. Since the establishment of the early college and the strong PIMA partnership that emerged through that program's creation, I've been focusing on building opportunities through PIMA dual enrollment. The main reason for this shift is that the credits through PIMA dual enrollment are free to families. Also, the transition to students coming into the Vail Early College became much easier for students with PIMA dual enrollment credit than any of those other methods. And so it was a little personal bias there, but mostly it was about that free to our parents. The reason for the push for increasing dual enrollment opportunities was based on what Ethan talked about, that national data shows that 88% of students who take at least one dual enrollment course in high school go on to college and are far more successful than students that don't. So by increasing free dual enrollment opportunities for our Vail students, those financial burdens are lifted, leading more students with the ability to benefit from these opportunities. So through these efforts, we are helping to support our students in their college and career readiness prior to graduation. So I'm proud of the fact that we're one of the few districts in Arizona that has a robust dual enrollment and concurrent enrollment program. Before I dive into all the good things that have been happening with dual enrollment, I do want to take a little time to highlight my baby, our concurrent enrollment efforts, the Vail Early College. We are not just about providing free college credit at the Vail Early College to our students. We're about helping our students navigate their first year of college while developing the tools for success in college and beyond. So as you know, we are in our 5th year now. We had a little dip in our numbers as a result of the pandemic, but we are on an upward trend. And we are also in an upward trend with the average of credits earned by our early college students. This year, we have 50 amazing students from our 5 high school campuses, And so far this year, we're in our 5th week so far. We are in school right now. We don't have fall break. And it has just been, I keep knocking on wood, it has been an amazing year. Wonderful students, and they're all doing amazing things. As you know, our students are concurrently enrolled at their high school. They graduate from their high school, but they're also enrolled as full-time Pima students, taking a full load of courses at Pima's East Campus. While I don't have much data to share about our current cohort just yet, other than the schools that they come to us from, I would like to take a moment to highlight a few of our students from our first years. Since we now have 5 years, we have some that have graduated or are about to graduate. And I want to take a moment to talk about one from each of our 4 schools that fed into our program that first year. So my first spotlight is Dylan. He was a Vail Academy graduate, class of 2019. He was one of those brave 43 that came into a program with not knowing what it was going to be about. And he had an amazing year. He went to NAU on the Lumberjack Scholarship and took with him 27 college credits, all transferred. He originally thought he was going to be a nurse, but at most college freshmen, those things change. He just figured it out his freshman year at NAU instead of at the early college with us, which is okay. But fortunately for him, when he changed his bachelor's to a degree in mechanical engineering, it did, because of his time in the early college, it did not delay his college experience. Sometimes when you change your major, it can add another year to college. Unfortunately for him, that year was actually, still within that 4 years of his lumberjack. And so he'll be graduating in May with his bachelor's in mechanical engineering. But with also the amount of credits he had going into NAU, he was able to actually complete a minor in business. With a mechanical engineering degree, you don't always have the time to be able to fit in a minor. And so he's looking to come back to Tucson, and his plans and work, and I hope it works out for him to work for Raytheon and be back in the Vail School District, in the Vail area where he's come from. Our second student that I'd like to highlight is Sophia. She was an Andrada class of 2019. She chose to stay at Pima, partially because it had the program she wanted. And so she took with her 27 credits that all transferred into the program, which she completed in spring of 2022, which is the licensed practical nurse. So she's currently using that to work in the home health industry while she's pursuing her registered nursing degree. So she's continuing with that process. And then I want to talk about Davy Ann. She was actually from our second cohort, class of 2020. She had that cohort had the roughest experience in the fact that they didn't have their senior year like everyone else had it. Up until March of 2020, everything was normal. And then March 13 at Pima, everything changed and we went entirely virtual. And she had that experience of while the rest of Arizona's schooling kind of paused, college didn't, and they had to figure out how to navigate virtual classes, and she did it amazingly well. And then went to the U of A, where she took with her 26 credits from Pima, and she is currently in her final year of her bachelor's at the U of A. So in 3 years, she will have completed her bachelor's in science and sustainable built environments. But she just recently in August was accepted into their accelerated master's program for science in urban planning. So while she's completing her bachelor's, she's also starting her master's. So she will in 4 years have graduated from the U of A with a master's in urban planning. So that's super excited. And I'm also very happy to say she came back to our early college boot camp this year to give some transfer tidbits and some success tips for students. And it was really well received. So I thank her for that. And then our last student I want to highlight is from Cienega, Maya, the class of 2019. She was a wonderful student to have for a first cohort. She was so inspirational and always so positive. Her mom works at Cienega, so some of you might know her. She went to NAU on a lumberjack scholarship with 24 credits and did graduate in 3 years and included changing her major. Again, she thought she was going to be a math teacher, but realized her passion for marketing and sports. And so she was able to pivot with the credits she had earned in her experience very easily with the plans that we had taught them on how to plan out their college degree. And in May of 2020, she graduated with a bachelor's in marketing. And she went to Wisconsin for a little bit to work for a baseball team, but now she's back here in Arizona working for the Phoenix Suns. So that's super exciting for her. I have a lot more students I could talk about. I still communicate with many, but we would be here for hours. And I know it's late and you all want to probably go home. So Instead, I want to take the time I have remaining to talk about the growth of dual enrollment in our district, which is something I've been working kind of as a side quest with the early college mission that Ethan put me on 5 years ago. So currently in Vail, 3 of our high schools offer dual enrollment courses. The courses that are in or up towards the top, you can't really see the orange on that screen, but over on that screen you can. These are transferable to 4-year universities. Those are your writing 101s, your chemistries, your math courses. And the ones that are not in orange are the CTE dual enrollment courses that provide trade-related college credit. These courses are the starting courses for certificate or associates of applied science courses at Pima and help students onto that direct to employment. And many of our students take both. A lot of students in culinary Micah Mountain also take Math 151. So it gives them the opportunity for those different experiences. The BCT courses are my CACS building trades classes. Students can earn college credit for those. Then automotive and veterinarian at Andrada. Since I started coordinating the dual enrollment for the district, I began collecting data. I was a former student achievement teacher, so I like data. And so since the fall of 2018, I began to look at the students how many students have been taking dual enrollment classes. And since fall of 2018, 1,395 students have taken at least one dual enrollment class during their high school time at these various high schools. Of those, on top of that, 280 of those also took multiple dual enrollment over multiple years. So this is just one dual enrollment course. Now the head count of this data is by year, so it does include students who took dual enrollment from 1 year to the next, but so that's at 280. So it looks like 1,675, but there's about 280 that were able to take dual enrollment their junior year, senior year, some even as early as their sophomore year. And now we can actually get some can take it as early as freshmen, depending on when it's offered. And when students are able to take them, especially for the CTE type courses. Unfortunately, I don't have a head count for students in dual enrollment prior to fall of 2018, but I can safely estimate with the data that Ethan and I have from those years that about 1,700 students so far have taken advantage of dual enrollment opportunities in our Vail High School campuses. And that includes some other opportunities that we've had. Some other opportunities we have is dual enrollment actually with a partnership with U of A. Engineering 102 through University of Arizona at Andrada and Micah Mountain is available to students in their Engineering 3 course. And then also at Andrada, they offer American Sign Language 1 and 2 through the U of A. These are specific dual enrollment programs that are in a partnership between teachers and kind of like a support teacher at the university and the Vail teacher on the campus, but they are not free programs. So there are limited scholarships available, but students in these classes at their high school have to take the option to paying for the credit. And as you can see, they have a substantial cost, but it still is at a discounted rate. Because definitely a 3-credit engineering class at the U of A is not $496, but with the dual enrollment, that's how much our students would be paying for that. As a result of the dual enrollment efforts, ever since from the beginning, and then really the hard push in 2018, our students have been getting off to a great start. They've been really working towards earning that college credit prior to graduating from high school. Unfortunately, I don't have our current data from the non-PIMA dual enrollment courses, as I don't have access to the U of A data in the same way I do with the PIMA data. I have made a request for that data, but it didn't come in prior to tonight's meeting. So I'm sorry, I do not have that. But I'm proud to say that since we've been making the shift to PIMA dual enrollment and established the Vail Early College, our Vail students have earned 13,737 college credits, with a combined total since 2015 of 15,760 college credits, and many of those being transferable. So it's pretty an impressive feat that our students have been doing. And since 2015, we can easily say that 1,700 Vail students have embarked on an opportunity to take college classes while in high school, helping them get a jump start on college and its expectations, and earning a total of almost 16,000 college credits. More importantly, about 90% of those credits were earned at a no tuition cost to our Vail families. which is a savings in in Pima tuition rates of $1.2 million. So I'm happy to report today that our efforts to provide opportunities to earn college credit while in high school is robust and is growing, and I will continue to help it grow in the Vail School District. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. May.
Wow.
I just also want to turn it over for any questions you may have. One thing that's emerged over the last year is the connection with a group called AZ Connect and a data sharing partnership with the Department of Ed. AZ Connect tracks all college students in Arizona by a number. So whether you're at GCU or NAU or any of our community colleges, it knows where those students are. That data sharing agreement is allowed by number, by their student ID number, to track back what their high school course of study was. So a student, for example, we can now look at Vail students who have taken whatever course, I'll just say writing 102, and look backwards and say what was their course of study and what their success rate was. And one of the really fascinating things that have been uncovered about looking at those data are it's answered the question, what is the efficacy of taking dual enrollment courses? There was always a suspicion that especially high school campus-based dual enrollment courses weren't as rigorous as AP courses are. That is absolutely not the case. It played out in data. In fact, dual enrollment courses, whether they're at our campuses or under Mrs. May's program at Pima, have a higher success rate, higher grade average rate for those students who continue on to college. Further, those students earn that credit and it goes with them wherever they go. Whereas unlike AP courses, if you pass, first you have to pass the test, and then second, your respective college that you go to has to accept that credit and accept it in an area that benefits you and not just stuff it into an elective. So if you earn writing 102 as a dual enrollment credit, that is what that transfers for. So it's really, really encouraging, and it's a huge testament to Mrs. May and Mr. Hurley that the work that has occurred over 6 years to accelerate that program and get ahead of the curve. I really think that this is an area that is where we're moving in just high school in general, and really how we blur the line between what high school looks like and post-high school outcomes. So that's all I have.
Mr. King?
Yeah, I was noticing the cost for the ASL program at the U of A.
Yeah.
And why was the U of A chosen for the ASL program over Pima? Because I know Pima offers a pretty robust ASL program with interpreter certificate as well.
It has to do with teacher certification.
Okay.
For the U of A program, the teacher at the Vail site does not have to be certified to teach at the college, and partners with a teacher at the U of A that is. Whereas if we were to transition that to Pima, then that teacher in that classroom at Andrada would have to be an adjunct faculty and be able to be certified as adjunct faculty like at the other sites. So that's the reason why the partnership there. Because I would love it to be the Pima, but we just can't.
I know.
Because then it would be free.
Fairly substantial cost.
Yes.
That's over
It's $1,000.
twice what I paid for,
Yeah.
For each of my ASL
Yeah.
class.
It's it's $90, about an average about $92 a credit with fees and things at Pima versus what? I mean, it's still substantial savings at a discount for the ASL dual enrollment, but it's still a lot more compared to a
Right.
4-credit Pima course. Yeah.
Thank
Or dual enrollment, which is free. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Tippett.
I remember having these conversations when I was a brand new baby board member, and just kind of going, oh, well, sure, that's a good idea. Of course. And not really understanding kind of the innovation that was happening. Understanding that was innovation, but not being able to look forward to this point and see the impact that it's having on Vail families and our students as they move into college or careers. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to our families, but Miss May, like you have just taken the ball and run, and really grateful for your work. Thank you. Thank you.
I am very grateful as well, and I'm just so happy that we have this opportunity for our students and our families in Vail. But really, this is a great program, and it's just thank you. Thank you. Any others?
Could I make a quick comment, Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
So I have the unique perspective this week. I brought my youngest son up to Utah for a couple things. And one of the added benefits is that we get to see our freshman in college, Kevin, who did the early college program last year. And I just cannot say enough good things about that program. And truly it would not be what it is today without Miss May and Miss Patty. Just seeing the confidence that Kevin has as a freshman that I know that he would not have had otherwise. And just knowing how campuses work, he was just talking to me about going in to get some tutoring for physics and knowing exactly how to do that. And it's not even the same school that he did early college with, but just knowing just kind of how everything works, it just was a game changer for him. So anyway, Miss May, I just want to report that Kevin is doing fantastic. Thanks to you.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear it.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
May.
you. Thank you for your time.
All right, next item on the agenda is elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER Fund 3 update. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. Mr. Hurley is up again. And as he comes up, this is also an item that is required primarily as cleanup for us at this point, as we are checking the boxes to draw down those federal funds to be able to use, but substantively, there's really no change. It's just some language cleanup. So with that, Mr. Hurley.
Yes, thank you. Once again, President Anderson, Mr. Kruth, members of the board. Ms. May had some really fun stuff to talk to you. You alluded to marionette and strings, and this is absolutely certainly one of those things. It is an interesting reminder and something for us to think about. It was clear how the COVID has had a major impact on our technology department and how much technology we had to do. It's clear how much the pandemic had to do with our business office today and how many different PARs and POs and things they had to do. But it's also a good time to shine a light on, this was a disaster on our HR department as well. The work that had to be done in HR to make sure that we were legal and compliant and making people happy and doing all the things by the books. So I want to thank Miss Laura Emsley. She did lots and lots of work to make sure all of the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, because when people give you $20 million and say, jump through these hoops, you have to jump through them really, really appropriately. And so over the time we've gotten funds and we wanted to make sure we did things right. So thank you to her help. But essentially why we're here is because when they came up with the ESSER funding, they said, you have to do this every 6 months. Every 6 months, you have to have a safe return to school plan. Or if the CDC makes major updates to their plan, you have to update your plan. So even though we've been safely back to school for a long, long time now, part of the requirements for the next couple of years is every 6 months we do this. And so it's been 6 months and the CDC updated their recommendations. What you will see on these recommendations, they removed recommendations to cohort. We removed those a long time ago. They removed quarantining if students were exposure. We haven't done that for a while. They removed recommendation to stay or test to stay and screening testings, and they removed lots of things. And all of those, quite honestly, were things that our HR department, by being on top of it, by working fantastically with state and county health departments and with Mr. Cruz's leadership, we've been ahead of and been working on those things and really been trying to open safe and healthy schools for a long time. So there they are. We did have some things to change though. We did have some updates. So I shared them with you in it, but here are all the things that we have to talk about in our plan. We have to talk about masks and physical distancing and contact tracing, and there's no change, no change, no change. We did put up signs teaching little kiddos to cough into their elbows instead of into their hands. That's something we all should have learned during the pandemic. So we have signs up now talking about how to cough properly. We have kind of updated our disinfecting stations. In the beginning, it was a lot on our custodial and janitorial staff, to be honest with you, to do the cleaning. And we put some of those, we put gloves and we put instructions and we put things in classrooms so teachers could help out and do those things in the in-between time. Testing, and previously, if you remember, we were running testing clinics and we were providing free testing to anybody that wanted to drive up on the street and get it. And now we just provide testing to our employees. So we had to put that in our plan. And we don't do the COVID every single day update back and forth positive numbers with the health department anymore. We had that in our previous plan, that those were things that we used to be doing. We're not doing that anymore. So we had to let them know of that. And we did not change our academic needs. We've had that plan in place and we're still working on that plan. Other needs were really free lunches and those things. We had in our plan that those were going to expire. We knew that was happening. And so the last one, which was social, emotional, mental health, we created kind of a staff wellness program, and we have a representative each site that helps with those things. But that's it. That's our legal requirement. We'll update what I presented to the board documents with any comments or questions or ideas or thoughts to the state and federal government this week.
I just want to add that Mr. Hurley did a great job of recognizing those people that ESSER grant fund requirements have created an extra burden. Nowhere in Mr. Hurley's title of Director of College and Career Readiness does it say ESSER fund spearhead person. And yet he's just picked that mantle up and run with it. And so thank you very much, Mr. Hurley, for doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley.
Sure. Glad to help.
Are there any questions or comments?
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is school resource officer / juvenile probation officer job description and position. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. We're bringing a job description forward for a school resource officer for a school resource safety program that is funded through the Arizona Department of Ed, and it's grant funded. It's actually tied in with their counselor program that they also allocate funds and positions throughout school districts. And we actually received the ability to hire 3 resource officers a year ago, along with a package of other counseling positions. At that time, it was our understanding that the funding for those SRO positions, the requirement is that we work with, in our case, Tucson Police Department or Pima County Sheriff's Department, use those funds to purchase an officer who would then be located and serve on our campuses. When we approached both respective agencies, they were very polite, but the response was, look, basically, we don't have extra officers to be able to do that, even though it would be a full compensation. We're shorthanded as it is. So we stopped pursuing those positions. I do want to point out that the Pima County Sheriff does assign 2 of their sheriff deputies to our schools based out of Cienega High School and Old Vale respectively, and then a piece of one that covers our Corona schools. That person is not usually there because they're in service as a regular officer. And they service as peace officers, but under their school resource officer program. So that was kind of the model that we were thinking it was going to be. Well, some of the requirements broadened, and we recently became aware of them, that with certain certifications that remain intact, that we could use the ADE grant funds and hire a school resource officer who is a retired law enforcement officer or a retired probation officer. And we said, oh, we have lots of those in our community, and that might be a real great way to approach this. And further, we have, as you know, we have been discussing and exploring how to expand our school safety processes. And one of the areas that we've identified that we really need support with is training staff, having consistent training of staff in particular, everybody wants to focus on the first responder moment of training and what happens when an incident occurs, but really the training that we need more consistently is how do we train staff to be vigilant and monitor the school setting on a consistent and regular basis. What does that look like? How do you do that? What are things, what are zones you need to pay attention to? All of those things. And Mr. Matt Beam, who's our director of school safety, has a whole bunch of other jobs and things that he helps with, and that was going to be a really tall task for him to be able to do. So we were actually, prior to this, considering using some of our federal funds to hire an assistant director position, but we don't think we need to do that now if we move forward with SRO process, because we can utilize the expertise of these people in these positions to help us with that process. There are conditions around the positions. One, they have to go through approved training, Department of Ed. Two, as I mentioned, they have to hold certain certifications for, and those need to remain current for them to be considered. And three, they need to spend the bulk of their time at the respective school at which they're assigned. And four, they need to spend a certain number of hours engaged in law-related education at their sites. Those are the basic components of what that looks like. Just also want to state that these would not be what we would say peace officers or law enforcement officers. They would not be able to arrest somebody. They do not respond to 911. In fact, they would not even carry a weapon. But they would maintain their certifications, would maintain that law enforcement background, and certainly would be able to help us both with law-related education issues, training issues, and just the general safety components across our schools, even though they'd be primarily assigned to three respective schools, Rincon Vista, Vale Academy and High School, and Andrada. So the job description is there for review. Happy to answer any other questions. If this moves forward, it's our intent to publicize these positions and see what we can get in regard to applicants. And again, I think, frankly, there's we'll have pretty. I think there'll be a pretty good response from our community as far as people being interested in this position. We have a number of people who are currently in law enforcement looking to retire or recently retired that would fit this bill. So with that, I'll go ahead and make the recommendation. The Vail School District Governing Board approve the school resource officer, juvenile probation officer job description and position as presented.
I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Mr. King moves.
I'll second.
Ms. Tippett seconds. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. King.
How many positions are we looking at?
We're approved under the grant for 3 positions.
3 positions. Okay.
Yeah. I should mention those there's a time limit on the amount of time for grants. I think it's a 2-year cycle now. It might be 3, but I think we're into the first year. And we would have to hire them by sometime in January. I can't remember, it's January 1st or mid-January. There's a time frame on when we'd have to hire them. But there's a pretty strong commitment from really all stakeholders, the governor's office and the Department of Ed, to continue the funding that supports these positions.
Ms. Tippett.
So it's likely that they'd be ongoing.
That was one of the questions that I had. And can you tell me about the reasoning behind the site selected?
Because those sites selected those positions over counseling positions. And when we went out and did the original, so they had an option. They could select a counselor position or a SRO position. Those respective sites thought, in our area, having an SRO would be a better match. And again, this was, now probably 2 years ago that those decisions were made. Those decisions were made prior, frankly, to COVID happening and us having the additional funding for some of the counseling positions. So that was a selection. Really, I think that was the site decisions for those things at a district level. What we're looking at is just kind of where are they regionalized? Some, being able to have some, Sierra Morado, Rincon Vista, Sonita Valley, now Micah Mountain area, even at Vail Academy, the ability to pivot over and help with the Rita Ranch schools, and then Drata having proximity to the Corona schools, also something we're looking at. And then in the rest of the county schools, we have good coverage. We have coverage, we have coverage already with existing Pima County Sheriff's SRO program.
Okay. Other questions? And do you have another question?
Not another question. I just feel like, at the state level, this model should really be more pushed out, I feel like. And,
It wasn't
3 for the whole district is,
Yeah, it wasn't obvious also about what the criteria were. We had to poke and prod and ask. So I think that's some feedback, but in regard to the sustainability of it, anytime there's somebody's on a grant position, it's hard to say it's 100% guaranteed, but what I can tell you is I know, because I've talked to the people who run these things and who's important to they're both on both sides of the, whatever respective organization or political aisle, there's support to continue this kind of funding, especially if it's available, recognizing that it's fills an important need in communities.
And one of the one of their job responsibilities would be to provide training for other schools in their safety.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. One of the things that we really need to develop is a standardized approach to training our staff about monitoring campuses. I think that's a short version of that, and what that means. We have individual school. We don't have a standardized process to do that. So I think and as we step back and looked at where do we have gaps in our school safety plans, that was one of them. But we've just left that up to sites to do, but we don't have a lot of staff to be able to do that. And so, Mr. Bean is here tonight as an example, helping cover, and been pivoting and doing other things. It's just been one person trying to get that done. So now this will help provide additional support for that.
Okay, great. So any other comments or questions? I will call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is fiscal year 2021-2022 annual financial report. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson and members of the board. Ms. Quiros and her team have been busy. And the next 3 items are all items that must be brought before you at this time of the year. The first one is the annual financial report. It's huge deal as far as processing that, and just an opportunity to go through that report. And we went through this during the study session. We're in great shape as far as where our carry forward funds are, both on M&O capital, Prop 301. We're in good standing with our federal and state grants and other cash funds. All ended up with cash balance, as well as our food service. So the complete report is attached. Mrs. Quiros is here to answer any questions that you may have relative to that. This is an action item, as it is required by statute to do, to provide both a report and take action on this. In essence, this report helps close out the prior fiscal year. If you think about it, if you think about the cycle of our budget process, and then the close out of that fiscal year, it takes us to roughly October-ish timeframe to be able to close out all of the requisitions and purchase orders from the prior year, and compile them and then report those data. And that's what we're doing in the annual financial report that we're required to submit to the Department of Ed. October 15th, we're doing that early because our next board meeting is until the 18th. And Mrs. Quiros is skipping town for a few days. So with that, I'll make the recommendation that the Vail School District Governing Board approved the 21-22 annual financial report as presented for submittal to ADE and for publication on the ADE website as presented.
I'll accept a motion.
I'll move.
Ms.
Second.
Tippett moves, Mr. King seconds. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Tippett.
As the clerk, I have the opportunity of reviewing and approving every single voucher that passes through our business office, and it has been a furious frenzy finishing up last year, along with all the purchasing associated with a whole new educational year, and it really has been a furious frenzy, and I appreciate the dedicated work to making sure that everything's coded correctly, tracked correctly, and that we follow all state statutes and the requirements in reporting our budget and our activity. We could not function without what you do. So, and I'm just blown away at our carry forward. I've never seen that.
Yeah, and remember, part of that, yeah, that's one part of it's intentional for us too. So,
Yeah.
And
Okay, any other comments or questions? We had the opportunity to review this in more detail at the study session and review the materials supplied. And really, we thank you for the excellent work you do for getting this all in place. It is a lot of work, so we appreciate it. So with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is M&O override. Mr. Cruz.
thank you, President Anderson, and members of the board. Ms. Quiros is also here for backup in case I run off the rails. She'll either raise her hand or eyebrow, and I'll catch that and call on her. But this is an annual accounting of our operational M&O override, which allows us by vote of the community to exceed our budget capacity by 12.5%, for specific reasons. And that is to maintain teaching positions. We call out 126 teaching positions because of the growth. It's actually more than that. It's closer to 150. Continue funding that promotes high academic performance, including programs for advanced students, reduce class sizes, provide tutoring and intercession classes, art and music classes, provide salary increases for teachers and non-administrative staff, provide additional staff to support counseling needs of students related to academic and career, social emotional development. So that's what we told the community we are using these additional funds for. And in fact, that is what we are using these additional funds for. You can see that there's been the dollar breakdown around those respective categories and what that looks like for a total last fiscal year of about $10.5 million. For this fiscal year, it's projected that there will be an increase to about $11.8 million. That's largely driven by two factors. One, an increase in the number of students we serve, ADM, and two, an increase in the base support level that we received from the state. So that's what is driving the increase in that. So that's the accounting for the M&O override report. This is an inform item, so there's no action needed.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Tippett.
I just a big thank you to our community for valuing our students so much and trusting our teachers and staff with additional funding to provide additional services to our students. This support is evident in the achievement and opportunities that our students have access to. I'm just always grateful.
Well said. and I wholeheartedly agree. Very grateful. We will move on to the ASBA agenda. Our
Bond reports.
bond report. Next item on the agenda is bond report, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. Want to also start this by saying thank you to our community, as Mrs. Tippett referenced in the last one, because this would not also be possible. This is also a requirement that we bring before you as an inform item in accounting of how we are using our bond funds. In this case, those from November 2018, almost 4 years ago to the day. Proposition 468 was approved by our community and allowed us the capacity to sell a little over $61 million in bonds to be broken up in 3 sales. The first occurred on April 19th, which the bulk of that was used to build Micah Mountain High School. Second sale occurred on April 20th. Again, the majority of those funds were used to finish Micah Mountain High School. There were other capital construction projects at our schools that were also associated with there. Happy to go through those as well. And then there is a third sale for the remaining bond amount, which has been set aside to help fund a new K-8 space. We have the ability to stretch that out beyond April of 23. If necessary, we have up to 10 years from the 18 approval, or is it not? It's either 18 or 19 to sell that last one. At this point, it's not, we know we're going to need additional K-8 space in the future, and we have a working agreement. We haven't finalized it to bring to the board, but a working agreement with Diamond Ventures to have a school space. They're very interested and active in that within the Rocking K development off of Old Spanish Trail. If that's where we ultimately decide to put the school, we've told them that that's where we want the school. I'm in agreement with that. These bond funds would help offset the costs for that. So in essence, what that means is we won't need to go to the community again to help offset the cost of building our next school. That's already baked into the 2018 bond dollars. There's a full accounting of the report. Happy to go through any of the other pieces that are on there if you would like. We're responsible for tracking these dollars. We're audited on these dollars. And we are spending them in the categories for which they were intended. And we're building, I think it's pretty obvious, we are building and constructing and purchasing this, building and constructing the spaces that we intended to and purchasing the items that we said we would. So I guess I had a couple of non-school things that I'd just like to point out that we've done is we purchased a number of buses with them, and we built out a portion of the fiber optic network with some of these funds as well. So 2 big community enhancement projects. So happy to answer any other questions on that. Again, it's an inform item.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Tippett?
I noticed that we have a small balance available under pupil transportation, and with the changes in that the legislature made last year with maybe white fleet opportunities, is that something we could potentially use for?
The balance is a little over $47,000.
That wouldn't buy one.
If you've priced a new car recently.
Oh, that's true. That's really, really true. Yeah, never mind.
Okay,
Thanks for the update.
Yep.
Shopping at Jerry's used car lot.
Yeah, that's right.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is the ASBA policy advisories. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. This is the kind of the second slew of policy advisories that have been recommended to bring us in alignment with the legislative changes that occurred at the end of last session. There are 4 policies that we're bringing before you for study tonight. They were part of the original ASBA policy advisory packet, but we wanted to just seek some further clarification from legal counsel and just also some staff input before we rolled them out. So I know we went through these in study session, but I just want to call them out because these ones are probably a little bit more significant than some of the others. The first one is policy JRR, which deals with student surveys and what that means. There's the law passed very descriptive about what is and what is considered a student survey, and that if a student survey asks one of 14 asks questions in line with one of 14 different categories, that it requires approval from the superintendent or my designee, and an opt-in from parents to be able to execute. So we've reviewed this. We feel we're in much better shape about what that is. And there was some question around what constituted a survey, which is still, frankly, just a little bit legally murky, but we are much more confident in being able to direct staff on what that means and doesn't mean. And just to that point, one of the prongs is that the information from a survey needs to be collected longer than a year and utilized. So things like quick questions that a teacher asks their classroom does not constitute a survey. That wouldn't meet that threshold. So anyways, just wanted to call that one out on what those 14 categories are, and then the opt-in piece. The only survey that we're really looking at that this may impact more directly is our annual student survey, Vail Cares Cadre Student Survey. So we are working to review that and doing one of two things: either altering the questions so they don't meet the categories, which would then alter a little bit of our apples to apples comparisons. As Mr. Aiken so dutifully pointed out, we could do something that might do fruit to fruit and meet the threshold. And we're also running this by our legal counsel as well. And for a number of reasons, and one of the other policies, we're also looking, Mr. Breen and his department are actively discussing what does opt-in look like and how can we capture that opt-in information in a more efficient manner. Frankly, this and another law that we'll talk about, that is just more apparent and more apparently necessary to have an efficient capture system for opt-in. The next policy is KI, visitors to school. I can't remember off the top of my head why we held that one, but fundamentally this policy is alignment with what we do. Anyways, it is respective to parents and prospective parents that we provide them with a visit and a process to visit their schools. We have always done that. I just want to also call out those that are left outside of this are, any respective community member. So this policy applies to parents or prospective parents, but doesn't apply to just any general community member who may want to come visit a school. So there are still some protections around that. Parent involvement in education is just codifies the Parent Bill of Rights, again, which we have been adhering to. The only other piece that it also requires is that we provide a student survey or parent survey, which we also do. Those are the main components of that. IHMB, which is Family Life Education. This is a result of the sexually explicit materials law. So there's a lot of language in here around that. It's tucked in under Family Life Education for sex ed. The materials we use for our opt-in sex ed classes have been approved several years ago. We have no intent of changing those or expanding that program in any way. But this does impact us more in particular around what constitutes, I'm leafing to this because provisions of what prohibition on use of sexually explicit materials that are defined in exemptions, in particular in literature. There's a couple of other arts, political, and scientific value, but the main issue for us is where does this impact us in regards to literature that's being used. There's some prongs related to this, that exemptions and which would then spark an opt-in to the pieces that are here. The material would need to possess serious educational value, and we would need to provide an opt-in. So the issue for us is there was no definition of serious educational value. So Mrs. Penn has been working with our staff, teachers and administrators to define our definition of what serious literary value means for us as a lens by which to gauge that, so that we can provide guardrails for our staff in executing this. That's all the policies that are before us this evening. Again, this is a study item. Happy to answer any further questions.
Are there any comments or questions? Oh, Ms. Tippett.
I appreciated the pumping the brakes on some of these, just to make sure that we've got it right for Vail in our community. I also noticed that the legislature was regularly passing into law requirements, that things that we already do as best practices. And so it requires no change for us, but it brings best practices maybe to some other places. I really appreciate the definition of serious literary value. I think that will be really helpful for staff and helpful for book review committees as they make decisions. And I also reviewing the opt-in form that parents will have the opportunity to review prior to opting in their child for a particular book. And Macbeth is opt-in material, folks. So this is stuff that we probably all read even in our own personal educations. But I think it's really thorough and will provide parents with the information that they will need to decide if they want to opt in or if they want to choose an additional assignment for a different assignment for their kiddo. So it's helpful for staff and it's super helpful for parents.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, we'll go on to the last item on the agenda, which is adjournment. And I will accept a motion to adjourn at 8:50 p.m.
I'll move.
Ms. Tippett moves and Mr. King seconds. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. And thank you all for spending your evening with us.